The untold story of Betty Davis, the queen of funk who refused to bow. In the world of funk, few names shine as brightly and as briefly as Betty Davis. Known for her fierce independence, electrifying stage presence, and barrier-breaking music, Betty was a trailblazer who challenged the status quo of the male-dominated music industry in the 1970s. But her story is not just about music. It's about rebellion, self-expression, and a woman who was unapologetically herself in a time when society wasn't ready for her. Early life and background. Betty Davis was born Betty Mabry on July 26, 1944, in Durham, North Carolina, and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her father was a steelworker and her mother a nurse. From a young age, Betty showed a strong will and a passion for music and fashion. By the time she was a teenager, she was already writing songs and dreaming of a career in music. At age 16, Betty moved to New York City to attend the Fashion Institute of Technology, pursuing her love of design. But it was the city's vibrant music scene that captivated her heart. She frequented clubs, met artists, and immersed herself in the counterculture movement of the 1960s. Betty and Miles Davis, a turbulent union. Betty's life changed dramatically when she met Miles Davis, the jazz legend, in 1968. She was 23, he was 42. Their whirlwind romance led to a brief, but influential marriage. Betty played a pivotal role in modernizing Miles' image, encouraging him to wear hipper clothes and listen to rock and funk music, particularly Jimi Hendrix and Sly Stone. It's widely believed that her influence led to Miles' legendary jazz fusion album, Bitches Brew. However, their marriage was short-lived, lasting only about a year. Betty's bold personality and independence clashed with Miles' controlling nature. He suspected her of having an affair with Hendrix, which she denied. In his autobiography, Miles later admitted he was jealous and insecure. Betty walked away, refusing to be silenced, even by a jazz legend. Breaking into music, the funk goddess emerges. After her divorce, Betty focused on her music career. She released her self-titled debut album, Betty Davis, in 1973. It was raw, sexual, and explosive. With songs like If I'm in Luck, I Might Get Picked Up and Anti-Love Song, Betty asserted a powerful, sexually liberated persona rarely seen in Black women in music at the time. Her second and third albums, They Say I'm Different, 1974, and Nasty Gal, 1975, only deepened her reputation as a fearless artist. Dressed in leather, towering heels, and wild afro hair, she screamed and growled her way through tracks, owning the stage and making funk music that was miles ahead of its time. But Betty Davis wasn't just a performer. She wrote and produced her own music, rare for women of that era. Her lyrics celebrated female sexual freedom, independence, and power, themes that made her controversial and often censored. Radio stations refused to play her songs. Mainstream audiences were shocked. Yet among musicians and fans, she became a cult figure. The industry pushed back and disappearance. Despite her talent, Betty faced resistance. The industry couldn't control her, and she refused to compromise her vision. Critics either loved her or hated her. She was banned from TV shows, and her music was blacklisted from many stations for being too sexual. Even her label, Island Records, dropped her after her third album didn't achieve commercial success. Frustrated and tired of fighting, Betty abruptly disappeared from the spotlight in the late 1970s. She left music behind, reportedly moving to Pennsylvania and living a quiet, private life. For decades, she refused interviews and avoided the public eye entirely, becoming something of a mystery. Rediscovery and legacy. It wasn't until the early 2000s that Betty's music began to reemerge. Labels like Light in the Attic Records began reissuing her albums, and a new generation of fans, especially women and indie artists, discovered her work. She became an icon of empowerment, especially for Black women in music. In 2017, the documentary Betty, They Say I'm Different was released, shedding light on her life and reclusive years. It offered rare insights into the woman behind the myth. Though Betty did not return to performing, She gave the filmmakers her blessing and participated in limited interviews. Bette Davis passed away on February 9, 2022, at the age of 77, in Pennsylvania. She had lived quietly for decades, but left behind a legacy louder than life. Why Bette Davis still matters. Bette Davis was a woman ahead of her time. She challenged not only the music industry but societal norms about race, gender, and sexuality. In an era when women, especially Black women, were expected to be soft, controlled, and respectable, Bette was wild, free, and unapologetic. She paved the way for artists like Prince, Madonna, Erykah Badu, Janelle Monáe, and Beyoncé. Her refusal to compromise inspired generations of musicians to own their sound and their image. Though her career was brief, her impact was massive. Conclusion: the story of Bette Davis is one of brilliance, rebellion, and resilience. She burned bright, challenged everything, and then vanished, leaving behind a trail of funk, fire, and freedom. She was not just a singer, she was a movement, decades before the world was ready for her. And now, finally, the world is catching up.